love to call this game Resident Evil with Dinosaurs, and I get it. It's the same era, same developer, even the same style of movement and camera angles. But on the surface, it's a pretty easy comparison. But that description couldn't be further from what the game is. Where Resident Evil was built on tension and dread, Dino Crisis is panic. The zombies in RE were slow and, for the most part, predictable. You could push past them, control the distance, and really manage the fear around them. The dinosaurs here, though, don't give you that kind of mercy. They sprint at you, they chase you, they grab you, and they don't stop. You don't feel like you're surviving monsters so much, you feel like you're being hunted by something real. All the sounds they make, like the clicking and the footsteps, the hissing the raptors do before they attack you, it feels alive. And then whenever you start seeing blood dripping from Regina as you run away, it's not horror in theory anymore, it's happening to you. But what really separates Dino Crisis isn't just the enemies, it's how the entire game thinks. Resident Evil was biological horror, obsessed with the corruption of life. Dino Crisis is scientific horror, equations, energy displacement, and logic pushed so far it breaks the world around it. It's a different kind of fear. It's not of the unknown, but of what we do know, and how far human curiosity can go before it eats us alive. And it's all wrapped in one of the most complex, demanding designs Capcom has ever made. All the doors, the locks, every code feels like it's testing you. It's not to survive, but it's to make you think. It's a game that makes you pick up a pen and paper in real life just to decipher a code. That's something most modern games would never dare to do today. That's what makes Dino Crisis so special. It's not a spin-off or an experiment. It's survival horror at its most logical, brutal, and unflinching. This wasn't about escaping the undead or a mansion anymore. It was about surviving nature, and realizing that sometimes reality is scarier than anything we can invent.
The second report from Military Experiment Facility. Agent name, Tom.
By the time Dino Crisis was in development, Capcom was already pretty much on top of the world. Resident Evil had completely blown up into this massive cultural thing. Survival horror wasn't a small niche anymore, it was defining an entire era. But that kind of success comes with a problem. When you've already nailed fear, when you've already nailed that creeping tension, where do you even go from there? Shinji Mikami, the guy who created Resident Evil, the one that I've talked about many times at this point, he wasn't interested in doing the same trick twice. He wanted something faster, something that hit a lot harder. Later on, he described it as wanting to make visceral horror. Not the kind that slowly crawls up on you, but the kind that makes your body lock up. You know, that feeling of something chasing you and you hear it's right behind you. So when people say Dino Crisis is just Resident Evil with dinosaurs, that's completely off the point. This wasn't Capcom reskinning their biggest hit. This was them trying to evolve fear. And the funny thing is, the game didn't even start with dinosaurs. The early drafts for it had mutated gorillas and these giant snakes. It was way more like jungle horror at first, but after Jurassic Park reignited everyone's obsession with dinosaurs, Mikami saw an opportunity. He wanted to capture that raw, primal terror. Not the awe of seeing a dinosaur, but that panic of realizing you're being hunted by one. The development had kicked off around '96, when Capcom's PlayStation tech was still built for those pre-rendered backgrounds that you saw in Resident Evil. But Mikami wanted something a bit more dynamic, a world that could actually move with you. So they switched to full 3D environments, and even though it was slower and kind of risky, and way more expensive, that one change completely changed how Dino Crisis feels. When you're being chased by something, the cameras don't just cut or stay still, they'll move with you. You're not just watching a scene anymore, you're in it, and that's really what separates it. But the changes didn't just stop there. The story moved away from viruses and mutations into this kind of scientific horror. Logic and human overreach gone wrong. It's not about corpses in a lab anymore, it's about an experiment with energy, time, and consequences. It's a game that basically asks, what happens when curiosity goes too far? I mean, Jurassic Park said it best. You thought too much about if you could do it, and not about if you should do it. And the game did really well too, it sold millions, it got great reviews, but its legacy got messy really fast after that. You know, Dino Crisis 2 leaned a lot more into action and kind of found its own style, and 3 kind of just fell apart. It was exclusive to the original Xbox, it took the story into space for some reason, and the technical issues buried it. But after that, the series basically went extinct. According to some insider leaks, so none of this is confirmed by Capcom, but years later Capcom tried to bring it back. The first was supposedly handled by Capcom Vancouver, a full remake prototype that never got past testing. Another version is said to be popped up later at a different studio, but insiders said it just didn't turn out good. And since then, all we've seen is a few trademark renewals and fans, including myself, begging for a comeback. And honestly, maybe that's the most fitting fate for a game like this, because Dino Crisis isn't something you can just remake with better graphics and modern controls. It's too specific, too methodical, and way too complex for a modern audience in my opinion. It's the kind of game that expects you to take notes on paper and decipher codes, that punishes you for rushing too much, and that builds fear not in jump scares, but through how the systems itself messes with you. That's what makes coming back to it now so interesting. It came from a studio at the height of its creativity, willing to break its own formula. And from a director who didn't care if you got frustrated, as long as you felt something real. Dino Crisis wasn't built to scare you the same way Resident Evil did. It was built to make you remember what fear feels like when it's faster than you are. This is where Capcom turned survival horror into a mental assault almost. You see, a lot of horror games, they make you react. Dino Crisis makes you think, while giant lizards are hunting you down. It's not just about dodging their claws and rationing your ammo, it's about solving problems under pressure, where every decision feels like it's part of an experiment. And that fits this setting perfectly. This isn't a haunted mansion full of locked doors for the sake of game design. This is a military research facility. All the barriers, the keypads, every coded lock, it exists for a reason. The puzzles are scientific because the people who built this place were scientists. It's not fantasy logic, it's procedure. It's cold, methodical, bureaucratic. You don't just find a key, you earn access through deduction. That's what makes the DDK system amazing, in my opinion. Each door is locked with a code that has to be deciphered using 2 disks, an input disk and a code disk. You combine them, reference a letter grid, and use logic to figure out which characters belong and which don't. It's part language and part math, and 100% deliberate. You can't brute force it, you can't just guess. You have to stop and think and write things down. And if you were playing this back in '99, you probably did. Pen and paper right next to the controller. I had to do it for this, playing through it again. Scratching out the letters like you were cracking a real code, and that's what it feels like. Capcom knew exactly what they were doing. Shinji Mikami even said it in an interview that he wanted players to really think about it this time. The puzzles, the traps, the systems. It's an interesting shift from Resident Evil, where the puzzles usually felt like obstacles between you and the next zombie. Here, they're the spine of the experience. They're what remind you that this world runs on logic and data, not superstition. It doesn't stop there. Halfway through the game, you get access to the FC device. It's a fingerprint scanner that lets you copy another person's ID. That means you can rewrite keycards, impersonate clearance levels, and slip through security systems. It's such a small mechanic on paper, but it changes everything. You're no longer just surviving, you're infiltrating. It blurs the line between scientists and survivor. You start thinking like the people who built this place, methodical, detached, and clinical. The fear becomes less about what's in the vents and more about whether you're smart enough to outthink the system before it kills you. There's something poetic about that. The same intelligence that created the dinosaurs, the hubris that brought them back, is now what you're forced to use to survive. Every puzzle reinforces that loop of cause and consequence. Scientists create the problem, and now science is the only thing keeping you alive. That's where Dino Crisis really separated itself from the rest of the genre. Resident Evil punished your hesitation, Silent Hill punished your emotion, Dino Crisis punished your imprecision. You couldn't just spam through inventory screens and run in circles until something worked. The game wanted you to operate like part of the machine, precise, deliberate, and analytical. It was horror for people who liked structure, fear built on logic. And yet, that's what made it tense, because while your brain was still decoding the DDK puzzle, your ears were still catching claw scratches down the hall. You were never allowed to relax. You had to think and survive, intellect versus instinct, at the same time. Modern games almost never do that anymore. They'll give you color-coded keys or puzzles that solve themselves before you even finish turning a dial. But back then, Capcom trusted players to be smart. even if it meant frustrating them. It's a different kind of respect. The game assumes you can handle it. That if you're going to step into a facility full of dinosaurs and broken ethics, you better bring more than a shotgun. You gotta bring your brain. That's the secret heartbeat of Dino Crisis. It's not just about what you see or what you shoot. It's about what you can figure out. The danger is not supernatural, it's systemic. Every locked door, code, every panel is another layer of experiment, testing your logic under pressure. It's not trial and error, it's intellect versus instinct, and that's what made it unforgettable. Before we move on, if you've made it this far into the video, just first off, thank you. If you're enjoying it, consider subbing. It really does help the channel grow a lot. And drop a like too. Or better yet, tell me your favorite memory of playing Dino Crisis down in the comments. I read every single one of them and I try to respond to most of them. Also, for all the folks over on mobile, there's this little thing called the hype button, and it's only available on mobile unfortunately, but it actually makes a massive difference. When you tap it, it gives the video points, which helps it climb the leaderboard, which lets it get seen by more people. It's honestly one of the best ways you can directly support the channel. It essentially tells the algorithm, hey, this video is good, show it to more people. And it's been working a lot. I've gained thousands of new subs lately, and I think a big part of that is because you all are using the hype button. So if you enjoy what I'm doing here, give it a tap, it really does help. I just want to say if you're new to the channel, this is your first video for Jake's Save Room, or if you've been here for a while, I want to explain that this isn't a nostalgia channel, it's a preservation project almost. I'm not just covering old games for the clicks or the retro hype. I'm trying to keep alive the meaning behind them, the stuff that gets lost when people only talk about graphics or sales numbers. A lot of creators break down games like their museum pieces, frame rates, ports, trivia, lore. That's fine, but I'm more interested in what these games felt like. What they meant when you played them back then, who you were, where your life was, what these moments held for you. For me, this channel isn't about chasing trends or talking crap about old bad games. It's about finding the value in them, even the weird, flawed, overlooked ones, and showing why they mattered. Because every game I cover meant something to someone, even if it was a bad game, it still meant something. And if I can help you remember that, even for a few minutes, that's the whole point of the channel.
What about Cooper?
Forget him. Time's up.
Wait!
But Dino Crisis doesn't just test how you think, it tests how well you can keep your hand steady while you're doing it. Every system here is a lot harsher and sharper than any other game before it, from Capcom. There's no cushion between you and the game's rules. The moment you think you found a rhythm, it cuts it apart with something new to manage. And it's all built around this simple idea: survival should feel earned. One of the first places that you feel it is in the bleeding mechanic. You don't just take damage, you bleed out. A raptor can rip you open and the wound just keeps bleeding while you move. You can actually see the blood dripping from your body as you run, leaving a trail behind you. It's the game's way of telling you you're alive, but you're not safe, and you're hurt. If it's bad enough, you can't ignore it. It will close up over time, but you'll need a hemostat or a specific medical mix to stop the bleeding, and those are limited. It's such a small detail, but it changes everything. Suddenly you're not just managing health bars, you're managing your injuries. You start thinking like someone actually trapped in the facility, weighing whether it's worth pushing to the next save room or stopping to patch up where you can still stand up. It's subtle, but it makes the game feel more biological than the virus did with the poison mechanic in Resident Evil. And then there's the mixing system, which might be one of Capcom's smartest pieces of design from that era. On the surface, it looks like another version of Resident Evil's herb system. Combine 2 items, get a stronger one. But here, it's not about color coding, it's chemistry. You can mix tranquilizers with healing items, create enhanced darts, even combine medical packs that heal and stop bleeding at the same time. There's real tension in that process because you're not just stacking power-ups, you're experimenting with scarce materials. One wrong mix can burn through everything you've got. It's not use and forget, it's test and pray. That's what makes this system special. It gives you agency, but it punishes sloppiness. It feels like Capcom asking, how much do you actually understand the systems you depend on? It's not trial and error, it's intellect versus instinct. The same goes for ammo and weapons. Every raptor feels like a boss fight almost. You never really have enough bullets, and the ones you do have feel fragile. You start counting how many hits it takes to drop one. You start learning their patterns and how to dodge, how to bait, when to commit. And when that's not enough, the game gives you tranq darts, but even those come with trade-offs. They're quiet and effective, but temporary. Kill something and it stays down, tranquilize it, and it will get up later. So again, the game forces you to decide what kind of survivor you want to be, efficient or safe, fast or prepared. This is where Dino Crisis separates itself from Resident Evil. It's not about the dread anymore, it's about control. Every decision has weight, and every mistake has a math behind it. Then we get to what might be one of the most overlooked mechanics in the entire game, the emergency boxes. On paper, they look like Resident Evil storage boxes, but the moment you use one, you realize Capcom rewired the whole concept. These boxes come in 3 colors, red, green, and yellow, each storing specific item types, ammo, medicine, or just mixed gear. But here's the catch, they're locked behind limited use items called plugs. Every time you find one, you have to choose which box to open, and that decision sticks. Once it's opened, boxes of the same color are linked like in Resident Evil, but only for those colors. So if you unlock a green box in one wing and another green box on the other side of the facility, they share the inventory, which is really cool. A networked storage system that rewards forethought and punishes waste. You're constantly asking yourself, do I spend this plug now for a healing stash, or save it for a red box later when I'm out of ammo? It's the same tension you feel in every other part of the game, logic fighting against panic. You're not just surviving in the environment, you're surviving with it. Even the inventory system leans into that design. You don't have much space, and you can't carry everything. Mixing items can consume entire stacks, so you learn to plan routes and resource chains like you're mapping a lab experiment, and that's the point. Dino Crisis isn't just testing your aim, it's testing your adaptability. Because by now, you realize the horror isn't just in the dinosaurs, it's the systems. They're relentless, exacting, and cold. Everything from the bleed effect to the color-coded storage is designed to make you stop and think before you move. The real monster here isn't the T-Rex, it's how quickly your logic breaks down under pressure. Dino Crisis is survival horror redefined as scientific method. Every resource is an equation, every mistake is an experiment gone wrong. It's fear expressed through process, precise, punishing, and methodical. When you finally survive a full wing of the facility without wasting a single bullet, when you pull off a perfect mix or make it to an emergency box with one sliver of health left, that's when it hits you. This isn't about trial and error, it's about control under chaos. It's survival by design.
Okay, let's move on.
At its core, Dino Crisis is a science experiment gone wrong. A top-secret government facility on Ibis Island has been researching a new kind of power called third energy. A technology meant to replace fossil fuels by manipulating space and time itself. It's supposed to be clean, limitless energy. But when Dr. Edward Kirk, the lead scientist, pushes the experiment too far, it tears a hole in reality. That's how the dinosaurs get in. They're not cloned or created. They're pulled straight out of the past. The facility doesn't just fail, it collapses in on itself. Half existing between 2 eras. Security systems go haywire, communications are dead, and what's left of the research team is scattered or dead. That's where Regina comes in. She's part of the elite task force called SORT, sent to recover Dr. Kirk after rumors surface that he's alive. But when the team lands, everything goes wrong pretty much immediately. They find blood on the walls, shredded equipment, no sign of the scientists. Within minutes, one of her teammates are dragged off, and that's when everyone realizes this isn't a rescue mission anymore. The rest of the story plays out inside that facility. It's a maze of labs, security checkpoints, and locked data rooms. Regina works alongside Rick, the tech specialist, and Gale, the hardened commander. Their dynamic creates most of the tension. Gale wants to complete the mission at any cost. Rick wants to prioritize survival. And Regina's caught in the middle trying to keep everyone alive. Meanwhile, Kirk is alive and still obsessed with his research, completely detached from the destruction he caused. To him, the dinosaurs aren't monsters, they're proof that third energy works. As Regina digs deeper, she discovers how far the project went before it collapsed. The facility had been performing live tests, trying to stabilize time distortions. But every time they fired the core, pieces of the building and the people inside were being erased, replaced or ripped apart by rifts in space-time. By the time you arrive, the entire complex is basically a wound in reality, bleeding between 2 timelines. That's why the dinosaurs never stop coming. They're not invading, they're being constantly pulled in. The more the generators run, the worse it gets. Every locked door or terminal you open just takes you deeper into a facility that's falling further out of sync with reality. What's clever about it is the game never shouts this at you. It's buried in data files, the research logs, and the stray bits of dialogue, pieces of a bigger story about science pushing too far. You start realizing that the dinosaurs aren't the real enemy here. It's the experiment itself, the arrogance of trying to control nature by rewriting the laws of physics. And by the end, that's what Dino Crisis is really about, a single mistake dressed up as progress. A group of people trying to survive the aftermath of their own creation. It's not about stopping the dinosaurs, it's about cleaning up a disaster humanity brought on itself. We touched on this a little back in the beginning, but I really think it's worth going over what happened after Dino Crisis hit shelves. Because when this game dropped in '99, Capcom was on top of the world. Resident Evil was redefining horror, Street Fighter was still a global name, and Capcom had basically become the brand for late '90s gaming. So when Dino Crisis came out, expectations were extremely high, and for the most part, it did deliver. Critics at the time praised it for how tense and intelligent it felt. It wasn't just another monster game. People loved the way it pushed players to think under pressure. The real-time 3D environments, the puzzles that felt more like research problems than riddles, and the way the dinosaurs moved with speed and aggression that no other horror game was doing at the time. It was fast and smart, and it was scary in a new way. The PlayStation version sold 2.4 million copies, officially earning platinum status at Capcom. And it got solid reviews across the board, but even then, a lot of people couldn't help comparing it to Resident Evil. They'd say it's just Resident Evil with dinosaurs, and yeah, visually, it used the same DNA. The fixed cameras, the tank controls, the door loading transitions, but what most people missed was that Capcom wasn't just copying a formula. They were testing how far they could stretch it. That's the part that didn't really get recognized at the time, because while Resident Evil was a survival horror game where you learned to survive, Dino Crisis was one where you earned your survival. The tension came from logic, not luck. It forced you to use your head when panic was screaming at you to run. Still though, the series didn't stay in the spotlight for long. Capcom released Dino Crisis 2 a year later, and it went into a totally different direction. It's a lot faster and louder and a lot more action-focused, almost arcadey. And it did work, but that sequel had its own fanbase, its own tone and rhythm. It was almost an arcade game dressed like a survival horror. More about reflexes than reasoning. And then came Dino Crisis 3 on the original Xbox. That came out in '03, and well, that's where things fell off the rails. It swapped the grounded lab horror for a spaceship full of mutant dinosaurs and gravity boots. Even the fans who loved the series had a hard time defending that one. It didn't just miss the tone, it lost the identity completely, and after that, the franchise just went silent. But that silence never really lasted. Every few years, Dino Crisis started trending again. Fans asking for remakes, concept art surfacing, rumors sparking online, and apparently those rumors weren't all that far off. As I'd mentioned before, according to a couple industry reports, Capcom actually did try to revive the series twice. But since then, the only signs of life have been a few trademark renewals, small Easter eggs and Capcom anniversary promos, and a constant hum of fan nostalgia that never seems to die out. It's been over 2 decades and the franchise still has a heartbeat. It's just faint. And maybe that's what makes it special now, because Dino Crisis doesn't feel like a series that failed. It feels like one that became frozen in time. A product of a very specific moment when Capcom was still experimenting, still taking risks, and still trying to make people feel something new. That's why people still talk about it, not because it was perfect, but because it dared to do something weird. It took the comfort zone that Resident Evil built and ripped it away. It punished you for thinking you were safe. It forced you to slow down, think, bleed, and adapt. All inside of a game that could easily have been just another horror clone. So yeah, Dino Crisis didn't become the next big Capcom franchise, but it left something behind, a feeling, a curiosity, the kind of panic that other games just don't chase anymore. And if you ask me, that legacy is worth remembering. And that's really what it comes down to. Dino Crisis deserves to be remembered, not just because it was different, but because it mattered. It was one of those rare games that came from a studio willing to take risks when it didn't have to. Capcom could have made another Resident Evil and just called it a day. But instead, they chased something new, a different kind of fear, a different kind of challenge. And that's what made this era so special. That's why I think Dino Crisis needs to make a comeback. Because if there's any game that could thrive in the RE engine, it's this one. Imagine the sound of a raptor chasing you down a metallic hallway in 4K HDR. The reflections of emergency lights bouncing off the floor. Imagine how that same logic-driven fear could feel now, rebuilt with the precision and detail of Capcom's modern remakes. The DDK puzzles could come back. The bleeding system could return with new layers of realism. Maybe you had to patch certain body parts or something. That's the dream though, right? Not to turn Dino Crisis into something new, but to let it live again. To let people experience what made it so ahead of its time. Because in a way, that's what this channel's all about. Because I'm not just talking about mechanics or graphics, I'm talking about moments. The nights we stayed up late with the TV shining on our face, the sound of the disc spinning in your system. That weird mix of excitement and fear that only these old horror games could give. When I make these videos, I'm not just trying to show you an old game, I'm trying to bring that feeling back to you. That little pulse of a memory that says, yeah, I remember this. And honestly, I wouldn't even be making this one as soon as I am. I had it planned out later. There's been so many requests for it over the last month or so, in the comments, on the streams, and the community posts. So if you're one of those people, thank you, and I really hope you liked it. If you all made it this far, do me a favor, consider subbing to the channel, drop a like, and if you have your own memories from Dino Crisis in general, tell me about them down in the comments. I read every single one and I try to respond to most of them. And this channel isn't built on the trends or algorithms. I mean, you can obviously look at the channel and see what games I'm covering. They're not trending at all. It's built on passion, memory, and just the love we still carry for games like this. Every time I sit down to make one of these, I'm reminded why I started Jake Save Room in the first place. It's not just to preserve games, it's to preserve us. Who we were when we played them. Because if we forgot what made us feel alive back then, we lose a piece of who we are. And Dino Crisis, it deserves to be one of those pieces we keep. It's a time capsule from when fear was earned, not given. When puzzles demanded paper and patience. When every step could be your last, not because the game was unfair, but because it was alive. And you had to think like it, breathe with it, and survive alongside it. That's the kind of design we don't see much anymore, and maybe that's why people still talk about it years later. Not because it was perfect, but because it felt real. It challenged us and scared us, and made us smarter for surviving it. So if Capcom ever decides to bring it back, I hope they remember what made it special. Not the dinosaurs or any jump scares, but the tension between the logic and instinct. That's the heart of Dino Crisis. That's what made it unforgettable. But thank you for being here with me, for keeping these memories alive, and for helping me build something that means more than just views and numbers. It feels real. But be sure to sub if you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see y'all later.